We want to welcome you to Spanglish World Network and her network on Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. Zingo TV is a free app that can be downloaded on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire Sticks, Roku and Roku Sticks, and all TVs 2016 and forward. Live Now is a show all about finding the synergy and body-minded spirit. Please join us as we tackle intense topics of conversation that will spur your mind, steer your soul, and give you some direction. With that said, we are excited to dive into tonight's topic with you. Hello, and welcome back to another amazing episode with Veenu and Chuck. Today I really am excited about this topic because having kids, there is a word in our family that is thrown around a lot. And I'm sure, Chuck, you having kids, it's probably been thrown around your family a lot too, where you ask your kids, are you doing this? When is this going to get done? This needs to be done. And their famous word is, I'm trying. I'm trying. And so, Chuck, it's very valid in my life. I don't know about it.
Oh, it's not only is it valid, it's become the cornerstone of, I will say, communication and to some degree confusion over what's valid and what the perception of valid is. And I know this may sound a little confusing to folks, but validity is really a feeling and a meaning that we attach to something where we say that it actually has context. It has value to it. And so I was excited when Veenu had poised this one, and I was like going, this one's going to be a fun one to dive into. And I just hope you all are ready.
Right. I've grown up in this world with you, Chuck, in the last almost 2 decades now. And we have heard in several environments that you don't try, you either do or you don't, and they would prove a point. And so someone would say, well, I'm trying, and say, okay, well, stand up. And the person stands up. They're like, you stood up, you didn't try, And then my point, because I'm sometimes a mismatcher, believe it or not, I would say, well, if I'm pushing this fridge by myself, I am literally trying to push it and it's not moving. And so it would create a debate. And so what I realized is, for me anyway, the word trying, it is a valid action when it's synonymous with putting forth an effort.
Yes. That's great clarification and a great distinction. There's this ideology, because when we all grew up with kind of pop culture, and Yoda says there is no trying, only do. And that's wonderful. And then I'm reminded of all the times that I tried to walk, but I wasn't doing walking. This like crawling undulation thing, going backwards, going sideways, rolling over. And they go, what's he trying to do? They didn't say what he's doing, because had they said, what's he doing? My parents would probably said flailing helplessly. Right? Because that's what it looked like, a turtle on its back. And it's like, but if we were to go ahead and say, well, what's he trying to do?
Right.
We think he's trying to walk at 9 months old. And they're like going, oh my gosh, like he's not only like lifting his head, he's like actually moving.
Right.
And the reason why this becomes so important, to your point, Veenu, is there's a motive and intention. And then also what will attach to this, which is what we'll call the timeline of progression. You don't come fully baked. And in this nuance, if it's in faith, family, fitness, finance, fun, fantasy, skill sets, pickleball, pinochle, Jenga, whatever the case might be, there's strategies, and we always And I don't, you know me, I'm not one to use the term always. I go, how often do we try a different strategy? In fact, we even implore people, try something different. When this fails, try something different. Try. It's like, wait, no. Are we saying do something different or try something different? So we almost create contradiction within our own language patterns as to the engagement that we're supposed to have. And then these are adults that are having these conversations. And what do we do when we matriculate this down to our kids? We use the same language patterns.
Right.
And talk about confusing. But I'm trying. Well, what does that mean to them in their 11-year-old little bodies right now?
Right. Right. And that's why I asked them. I'm like, so instead of saying trying's not a word, or you don't try, you either do or you don't, what we ask them is, what would that look like? Tell me what trying looks like to you. You know, so like, let's talk about grades for a moment. If I'm trying to get an A because I know like he wants this new phone, if he gets all A's, he gets his phone. And I said, well, what specifically did you do to try to get an A? Well, I kept asking her if all my work was turned in. I'm like, you have a checklist that shows you what you've done the minute you turn it in. So again, I can see your effort by asking, what specifically are you doing?
Yes.
You know, because what I want to teach my children is that try is not a bad word when there's substance to it, when there's action taken with the try, you know. But on the other hand, when people are like, well, I'm trying to be an entrepreneur. Well, what are you doing for it? I mean, I don't know. I'm just,
it's,
I'm quitting my job. Okay. Please don't do that yet. You know, and I have a lot of respect for burn the boats at a certain time.
You know,
at a certain time. How many people have burned the boats and they weren't ready to burn that boat yet?
Or the environment changed.
Correct.
Or things that were outside of their control.
Circumstances just changed.
Well, exactly. Listen, we're in an evolving environment and things are changing rapidly. And so I have known people who changed the word trying for attempting. And I'm like, do you have a thesaurus?
Right.
Is it really? So what I broke it down to, and this is going to sound really silly, but I'm going to use it anyway. It's all about the ings. And people go, what? I go, learnings, doings, beings, studying,
it's the adverb.
Attempting.
Right.
And they go, wait, what? I go, because it's interesting when we start to look at it, because then all of a sudden it's like going, oh, well, what are all those things that I said? They're all versions of trying. They're just at different levels. So we take this simple word trying and we make it everything.
Right.
And it's like going, oh, why does it feel so absolute to some people? They go, oh, well, you're not trying hard enough. Okay, granted. Because if we make an attempt and we have some pushback, we know that whatever resists is going to persist. So we're probably not going to be making the progress. Yet we haven't exercised any repo either, right? We haven't exercised any repetition. We haven't linked any ease to it or pleasure. And because it's not pleasurable and it's not easy, at least in our minds, we don't do it often.
Right.
So this happens every time I try. Again, we can use walking.
That's a noun. Tries a noun. It's not like, and try, like you, to your point, ing, you know, and I had to look it up because I'm like, oh gosh, I say the right thing. But yeah, ing is an adverb, but it's also a verb.
Yes.
Right. So when you add it, but what is a verb? It is, or an adverb is a description of a word of doing something, right? So, and a verb is an action. And so to your point, as long as there is action there,
yes,
then trying is definitely a valid action to take. I think where we got caught up is when people used to use the word I tried or I'm trying, and it's an excuse. It's an excuse not to do something. And people will take that for face value get off their back for a little bit. Your kid says, oh, I'm trying to, do this. Okay. So you leave them alone. Okay. Well, they're making an effort. They're trying. And then you get the grades and it's like, where was the try?
Well, and so here's the deal. We can use the exact same terminology with do.
Right.
Well, I did my best. It's like, well, you still failed. So try or do, they're the same thing. The difference is the clarifying language that people are trying to use to justify it in their own mind.
Right.
So you go, well, at least you attempted it. At least you did it, and then you failed. You didn't just try, and then it's like, wait, what? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, does that make sense? Because I'm going, in my own mind's eye, I was like, what, holy smokes. Yet part of this is we direct people's filters to what they're supposed to use to process this. And they go, well, okay, you went off the reservation there for a second. Give me an example. It's like, it's really simple. We have told our kids, at least I know I have on a gajillion occasions, and we've switched this now. We said, you can do anything you put your mind to. And all of a sudden, we're saying you can put anything you put into the computer that's created to only look for facts and not for positive or negative, but black and white. It looks for contrast.
Right.
So when we actually say, well, when you're being your best, you'll do your best, that's actually a state of being. And you're not just in your head, you're in your full body. And so all of a sudden there's emotion that's attached to it instead of judgment. Because it doesn't become, oh, you gave your best attempt, you did your best. It's, did you pass or fail?
Right.
And then they threw in these other grades called C's and B's in between the A's and the D's. So I start to look at this and go, holy smokes, our education system is predicated on the fact that it's all about comparison and scoring. And they use a term, well, we need to measure where your child's at. We need to measure your progress. And I go, well, if I'm feeling better than I was yesterday, that's a pretty freaking good measurement.
Right. I think that's a great segue into looking at, like, what are our measurement tools? What are our measurement tools for trying? What's our measurement tool for succeeding? What's our measurement tool for failing? I think so much we get into the world of comparison. And you and I've said it before, comparison steals your joy. It just does. The minute you start comparing, even if you think you're better than someone and you're comparing, that joy does not stay around long. Like, literally what you're doing when you're doing that is looking for validation.
Right.
Yeah. So when we look at what is our measurement tool to see if we're good enough, to see if we're valid for that position, or if, I belong. Our kids go through it all the time. And I was just having a conversation. My daughter has her best friend over for to spend the night. And we were talking at dinner. And I was just talking about, like, how even kids, it's like I was teaching them, I'm like, comparison steals your joy. And she's like, oh, Miss B, you're so right. Like, it does. And I said, yeah, I mean, when have you ever compared to something positive? And she goes, I mean, we don't, right? Like, we compare to find out why we're not good enough, hoping that somewhere in our mind, it will make us be good enough because we'll do something different to be something different.
Yes. And even to your point, Veenu, when we say look for inspiration or aspiration, well, that's a standard. That's not a comparison.
Right.
That's something to espouse to. And we don't even know if it's better. The perception is that we've elevated it in some way, shape, or form, where they go, oh, more must be better. I go, really? More debt is better? Oh, okay. Well, they go, like, more money, more cake. And I go, no, more cake is more sugar. More sugar means more exercise. Do you love exercising? Then great. And they're like, oh, so more is not always better? No.
No.
So to your point, the measuring scale that we use oftentimes has what we'll call a fundamental barometer to it. Does it feel good? Doesn't it feel good? Because more pain isn't better.
Right.
Yet we hear people, more is more and less is less. And I go, yes, less angst, more prosperity. Oh, but you can flip the script real easy. And you may not even be in control of what creates the factors around how things are being measured.
Right. Right. But we do get the opportunity, because here's where choice comes, free-minded choice, right? What do I choose to allow to be my measurement tool? Because, you and I have been in environments in our past that, I used to say it's this environment that made me feel I'm enough is the same environment that makes me feel I'm not enough. And you know what? It was never the environment. It was me. It was me. It was me creating this story in my mind, what I thought I needed to be in order to be enough.
Right.
And so striving at it, figuring out and trying to figure out a formula that never even existed. The only way it existed was in my mind. And again, how do we create our measurement tool? What do we want to be? And I love what you say, aspire versus, inspiration versus aspiration, is that when I look at someone that I look up to, what I'm looking for is what is the impact they're having in the world?
Mm-hmm.
The people I surround myself with. One of the things that attracted me to joining YBL, you and I talk about it a lot here because it's just so amazing. So Your Best Life, right? That title. It's not just the camaraderie that we get to have to learn about each other. It's the contribution that we do on each of these teams. Each trip we take is that we want, and it's our impact, right? We call it like our impact because we want to leave our mark wherever we visit.
Yes.
And that is the one thing that, how many masterminds actually do that, where everywhere they go, they leave their mark. And that's what I aspire to be in my life. Someone that wherever I go, I leave my mark in a positive way for the culture that's in there.
Yes. The congruity of who you are and the fundamentals that you strive and drive to emote, emit, and to share are really strong character traits that we hold near and dear. And when we find other people who resonate the same frequency and we can have this levels of relationship where you're like going, this isn't forced, this isn't pushed, and in fact, it's not even like financial. It's like, okay, if you want to, great. If not, not an issue.
Right.
Because we are going to donate time and energy and care. And it's like, wow, how does that elevate people? And I go, at a whole different level, in a whole different way. And to your point, we make it a point to find, and it's not always easy. I'm just going to tell you, the team is freaking amazing because it's not always easy when you're in a foreign country to figure out a way. And yet, when you're committed, there's always a way.
Right.
There's always a way. And this goes to the point. We could try to do impact. And to your point, we look for valid causes that we know whatever we do is going to impact. If it's conversations, collaboration, communication, all these things, because the time and energy are the most validated, underrated aspects of our lives. If you go, oh, well, we gave a lot of money. And I go, great. What was accomplished with it?
Right.
Because here's the other side to what you just said, Veenu, and it's accountability. We follow up with every single one of the communities that we've donated money to.
I love it. I think that's the biggest thing that we get the value of, right?
Yes.
Is like seeing a year down the road, what that did and how it grows, right? What we do, it grows.
Yes.
In there. But again, what's the measurement tool, right? It goes down to like, what are we measuring to? Our friendships. What's the measurement tool to know that you're a good friend? What's the measurement tool to know that you're good in your job or you need to do something different? And I think it comes down again to choice. Like, what is it that you're choosing to put yourself in between to say yes or no? Like I do that with my clients, like when I'm trying to figure out where they're at, with their stress level, especially kids, right? When kids get overwhelmed, they shut down.
Mm-hmm.
They look depressed. They look anxious. They look a lot. They just have a lot going on. But really what it is overwhelm. So when I come in there and I coach with these kids and I start to pull away the layers, I pull away the overwhelm to where they need to be. And then I ask them, I'm like, so on a scale of 1 to 10. And so, but I label what it is. And I've learned that even with myself, like when we do the life wheel, it's always like on a scale of 1 to 10. But here's what a 10 looks like.
That's
where are you at?
Well, and understand that if we give ourselves a 10 right now, that's where our focus has been going. That's where we have been myopically, like we are putting time, energy, and intention here. The challenge becomes life is continuing to move. And if you do the same things you've always done, that may fall down to an 8 or a 7.
Right.
So it's about, and I love this when you do this measurement with folks, and that is we're meeting people where they're at. Not in the anticipation of where we expect them to be, because they should be here by now. And you're like going, whoa, 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 whoa. What, based on chronology or their earning potential? We don't know all the things that have been going on in their world.
Right.
But those things add up quick. Or they can. I should say they can add up quick.
Right. Right. And then you also have to know, like, again, by, like, for instance, like what I was saying, by my standards or by what I think someone else's standards is.
Right.
The guessing game, you know? And that's why, like I explained to my kids, I said, you know, you have to tell me what feels good. If that C feels good to you, then go for it. But what does that C mean to you? What does it actually mean to get a C? And they're like, oh, well, we tried. And I said, we tried. And how did we try?
Right.
You know, something's going on with our videos. It's crazy. I'm seeing you big, I'm seeing you small, and then I'm seeing you big.
We're moving all over the place.
That's so weird. Anyway, and so just trying to figure out from their perspective, there we go. From their perspective, what is a C? What is a B? What is an A? And I'm going to tell you, I've had more success with my children striving to have a better grade because of the meaning they're attaching to it, not the meaning I'm attaching to it.
Yes, because they get to link to what the emotions and the feelings and the definition is for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as varied as personalities are. And I'll say the personification or the ideology of what pretty is. Because one person will look at someone and go, oh, they're pretty. And then you're like going, okay. And someone will look at someone else and go, oh my gosh, they're so pretty. And you're like going, uh-huh. And then others, you're like going, oh, they're gorgeous. I don't know what it is about them. You're like going, yeah, I don't know what it is about them either. Because you're like going, mm-mm.
But that's what we didn't believe that, though, when we were told beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Yes.
You know, and then, but what you found out as a kid, and especially middle school, high school, is beauty's in the eye of the beholder of the popular people, and you better go along with what they think so you could fit in.
Right.
And then you come adult and you start to see what real beauty is. And it's not anything that you thought it was at all.
No.
And it's not just personality, by the way.
No. So I love that you went there, because I remember this Dove commercial that was really powerful commercial that was run probably, oh my golly, 6-7 years ago now. And
I remember it.
Right? They bring all these people in a room. And I know we saw it from a comical standpoint too, because there's an SNL skit of it that is absolutely hilarious. And yet they bring people in and they say, well, we want you to go ahead and describe yourself to this artist, and they can't see them. So they're behind a screen and they're describing themselves as they see themselves to like this sketch artist.
Right.
Like, so you find on like CIS or
right.
Like a profiler show. And then they bring someone else in who was sitting next to him and they go, oh, can you describe Cynthia? And they describe Cynthia and it's like, wow, you see this portrait that comes. And when people left to their own devices don't have a strong nuance of self, it'll show X. And then personality, energy, nuance, the one that someone else described, they're like going, oh my gosh, you look so angelic. You look so like it, just the character traits, how they describe the eyes, like lazy and like I'm tired, I'm lethargic. And someone else will go, oh, they had this relaxed look on their face. Are we saying the same thing?
Do you have the same mirror that I'm looking at?
Right. They're going, I want what they're drinking. Because whatever filter they're using,
I'll be like, yeah, what he said.
yeah, right. You're going, The comical part is that when they have the guys on and they're like going, I'm amazing. Imagine Tom Cruise mixed with, you know, Hugh Jackman, and they're like going, oh, so big, tall,
I know, 4 5.
and then they had someone else describe them, and they look like Frodo. I mean, you're like going, or Gollum. You're like, oh. So why do we go there? Part of the validation is emotion.
Yeah.
And that is a measurement. And unfortunately, Veenu, and at least, please correct me if I'm incorrect in my extrapolation on this. We've been in several environments where when we said, you'll know you're making progress because you'll feel better. And they're like going, that's not a good enough measurement. And I'm like, wait a second. Your happiness? It's like you need data driven. And I go, okay, how about if I were to plug into you a neuroreceptor reader that was triggering every time you had adrenaline, dopamine, oxytocin. So oxytocin, good. Dopamine, good. Adrenaline, could be excitement, and then you drop off. So, but when we look at this and I go, okay, so you were happy when this was happening. Well, look at your neuroreceptors and triggers. Oh my gosh, I guess feelings are a great measurement for the biochemical activity that's occurring within your body. And yet on the surface, we dismiss it. And I go, I don't understand that. Because by all accounts, everything I'm reading now is that when we go internal, when we go into meditation, there are some people who are trying to find self. And yet, if there are things and stuff all around you swirling, you're not connecting with you.
Right.
Because you is what's left when everything else is gone.
Right. To your point about the whole description of ourselves, and you and I've talked about this before, how we have been built to be self-beaters. It's almost like if I put myself down enough,
Yes.
it'll be enough leverage for me to change.
Yes.
And I implore people to start learning how to be self-builders. To look at what the gifts are that you have and build upon it. Create that foundation. And then all of a sudden, I feel, especially through my experience, that our measurement tool changes.
Oh, completely.
We could get that same sketch artist probably.
Yeah.
Redescribe ourselves differently.
There's definitely the opportunity to do so. And part of it is that, are we giving ourselves the benefit to forgive, to understand, to appreciate, and then expand?
Right.
And many people are retracting, not expanding. They're having experiences where they feel marginalized, judged, or made to feel small. And not because someone is holding them down, because they don't believe in themselves enough to set themselves free to even attempt to fail. And they go, what do you mean to fail? Well, are you a professional at this? Do you have everything that it takes? Are you a professional runner? Because here's the truth. I've seen professional runners fall. at
Mm,
track meets, on courses, doing hurdles, doing different things. And they go, oh, why? I said, because the pressure was so much.
that overwhelm. Yeah.
And yet these are people that practice hours each day that are used to winning by milliseconds, hundreds of a second between first and second. Talk about stress, talk about pressure. And yet we're going, oh, I don't know if I should go for that position because I don't know enough yet. And I go, well, skill can be taught. Are you hungry? Do you have the drive? Do you have the ambition? Do you have the belief that you have the capacity and the capability to actually grow beyond where you currently are at? I'll give someone a shot if they show that drive.
Right.
But if they're like, well, yeah, I was going to.
I was trying.
Oh, that was painful.
Right. So let's just like kind of switch gears and let's talk about what trying is not.
Yes.
Trying is not doing the same thing over and over and waiting for something to change.
Correct.
That's not trying.
No.
That's not trying. I'm trying to be a better person every day. Great. So what did you do? The same thing I did yesterday. And I was hopium, right? That's your favorite word to say, hopium. We were in hopium thinking that if I just try to change my mindset, then things would change, even though my behavior didn't change.
Yes.
That's definitely not what trying is.
And then we fall prey to something.
Right.
And that is repetition is the mother of all skill. You need to do it over and over again until it sticks. And I'm like, okay, things out of context become very damaging.
Yes, definitely.
Right? So it's like, what needs to happen? Said, well, the most fundamentalist way I can put it is that trying is not half-assing. Sorry, technical term. And people go, what? I go, you can try poorly or you can try fully. If you try fully, then you have nothing to regret. If you try poorly, then you have everything to regret because you've wasted your time and that of others. Now, what's the difference? If you really weren't feeling it and if you weren't compelled to be in it, to even do it or attempt it, then listen to yourself and own you too. There's one clarifying factor. Are you moving away from this because of fear? Or are you moving away from this because it really doesn't have any value to you? And those are two entirely different things.
And fear of what? A lot of people like fear of being found out, fear of being myself, fear of being seen under the mask.
Yes. Yes and yes.
Yeah.
And so what trying is when, and you know what just dawned on me? The doings follow the being. So your state, irrespective of doing it, trying it, attempting it, living it, owning it, has everything to do with your state.
I agree.
And when we can find that space and that grace to live in that modality, that belief in ourselves, body, mind, and spirit, then the entire experience becomes a different thing. As we say, you're doing your best, never being your best. Being your best, you'll always do your best. And there's a presupposition there, which is that your standard is so high when you're being your best and you're so congruent that anything that you go into is going to be elevated beyond the scope of just meh.
Right.
Right. Another technical term. Meh.
Yeah.
Just showing up. Meh. And showing up. And I know a lot of people who are so skilled at times, they just show up and they'll have a measure of success. They go, yeah, wasn't that hard. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So that was easy for you. And they'll go, yeah, that was so easy. In fact, I don't even understand. Why would this be difficult for someone? It's like, oh, maybe they don't have your skill.
Right.
Maybe they just learned how to walk. They don't know how to jump up and down on one foot. They don't have that skill level yet. They don't have that body awareness yet. And so this is where judgment and criticism and community start to make a big difference as well. Who are you hanging out with? Are they encouraging you to not try? Because they don't try, so why would you try? Because that just is crazy. Why would anyone want to try to do this?
I also think trying can also be the word of practice. When you're trying and trying until you succeed, it's like practice, practice, practice. Like that's one of the most spiritual things that we can do is practice. And I think that that's trying, like you're trying to elevate your mind to be within the spirit.
Yes.
And how do you get there? Not just by sitting there thinking it. You have to put into practice. You try, you put that effort. Again, going back to what we said in the beginning of this call, it's synonymous with taking action. It's, trying is making an effort with actions.
Yes. Part of that, and thank you for that, Veenu, it's making the commitment. I know a lot of people, and we've talked about this before. We fake it till we make it. And the part of trying is we face it as we make it. We're actually in it. We
Doing
are
something.
Yes. And we're measuring, we're pushing, we're gauging, we're growing. And so there's two things that are happening simultaneously. We're growing and experiencing at the same time. And from that comes lessons and insights and skills. Till we get to the point where we start faithing it, because now we're making some progress.
Right.
And then it becomes rote behavior, which is like you believe as you achieve. And that can be its own trapping as well, because people go, well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, they're doing it at such a high level, but yet for those that have gone to that high level, some of them don't bother to keep learning.
Right.
And they're like, oh, come on. I got this. I've been doing this for 35 years. I'm like, well, that's great. Are you continuing to learn and apply? And they go, huh? Because what's this phrase that we use? We don't go do something different. We offer an invitation to try something different. So trying is literally the act of inviting ourselves to the opportunity of being engaged.
Agree.
So it's just a part in the phase of development. And yet it gets such a bad rap. Isn't that why Nike came out with the saying? They didn't say, try it. They said, do it.
Do it.
Just do it. And it's like, okay, what does that mean? Because in the analysis afterwards, they would go, oh, well, you tried, right? You tried your best? And I found myself when my kids were in sports, I started asking them, did you do your best?
Right. Did you not try? You do again.
Right. And we lived it together. Did you not try to do your best? And it's like going,
right. It's elevating and it's making the word have substance. It's putting something to the word try where it's not just an excuse. I tried. Well, what specifically did you do? It's helping. Like that's what I try to do with my kids when they're like, Mom, I'm trying. How specifically?
Yes.
And even my husband, and sometimes I think my husband thinks I'm condescending him. And I'm like, look, I'm really not. Like, I'm just really trying to celebrate the efforts you made because I'm not seeing them. And if I'm not seeing them, that's when I become the nag that you don't like to see. So I'm really just trying to figure it out. So I want to celebrate you. So now that he knows that, because clear communication.
Yes.
He's like, here's what I did to attempt to get it done. And I'm like, oh, you really did. Like, thank you. Like, that is amazing. And thank you for sharing that with me. And now I'll get off your back because I realize you got to fill up that hole now. No worries. Thanks for trying. But I mean, again, it's a clear communication and it's giving the word trying some fuel, some meaning more than just an excuse for sure.
There's the flip side of that coin, which actually makes trying remarkable. And that's quitting.
Oh yeah, trying to quit. Don't you love that? I'm trying to quit.
Oh,
Can I tell you how
that's a whole nother session on, oh my God.
how many times I tried to quit smoking
Uh,
in 25 years?
I mean, hey, listen, there are some things, and I'm going to remind all of us, there are stacking biomechanical things, biochemical things that
Yep.
go on too that create challenges, because there are certain things that your body needs. And this is something that hit me like a ton of bricks today in a conversation. Fulfilling your needs is something that gives you the sense of security to move forward. When you learn how to chase and fulfill your wants, you fill up your soul and you. And it's like, wow. Oftentimes we go, oh, are you just chasing your wants or fulfilling your needs? Well, here's the challenge. When your needs are being met, your wants are going to change. And what you'll start to find is that you'll dare to dream even bigger when your needs are being met.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why? When we try to meet our needs, what we're literally doing is pouring the concrete foundation for us to be able to chase our wants. And to your point, that becomes a really big part of the narrative. Because if we don't feel there's any possibilities, people will give up. In fact, this is one of the many reasons why people will go into living what we'll call a subsistence lifestyle. They're just trying to get by. They don't have even a notion to attempt to fly, to thrive. Like, I'm okay as long as I just stay right at the line. I'm not looking to go over it. I'm not looking to fall under it. I just need to stay here. This is where I live.
Right.
Yeah. So what is that? And I go, that's failure to thrive syndrome.
Absolutely.
When you don't love yourself enough, right, Veenu? Then you're not going to elevate, because you don't believe in you. Your frequency is so low that other people don't believe in you. And so no one even tries at that point. And that goes back to the Q word. And I go, questions? No, quitter. I wish they'd use the Q for questions.
Right.
I don't even know what that flowed through me at that moment, but it did.
I think it just goes back to helping us be accountable for what we say we're trying. And I think it's self-accountability, it's self-ownership. That are we really making that effort? We're taking action towards another step to move forward.
Yes.
Or are we making ourselves comfortable by telling ourselves we're trying when we haven't done anything different? And I think that is that key element to the whole topic of tonight, is trying a valid action.
Yes.
And the only judgment is from yourself. Like, if you truly believe you're trying and you're taking action towards something, so trying is now a verb.
Yes.
Then it's no longer a description of something, an adjective of just making an effort, like just excuse that I don't know what else they want from me. I'm trying. Well, what specifically are you trying?
And to your point, it really comes down to what we've always espoused, and that is knowledge without execution is useless.
Right.
Right? So really what we're talking about is committing to the action and making the attempt, which is trying, which is doing, and it doesn't always result in accolades.
Right.
It does result in an experience. And it dawned on me as you said that oftentimes we've already created a presupposition around trying. They're going to try and be successful. They're going to try and be happy. They're going to try. And I go, okay, what's the opposite? Because we know that your reticular activating system, where focus goes, energy flows. So what's the opposite? Moving away from quitting?
Right. It's funny because I talk to parents all the time. It's like, oh, my kid thinks that they're going to be an NFL player. And she's like, but I don't want them to get hurt. So I'm just like hurt, meaning like their feelings hurt. So
Right.
I'm already telling them, you can want it, but you may not. So, and I'm opposite. My son says he's going to be in the World Series, the World Cup, sorry, World Series. Doesn't play baseball, soccer, football. So he wants to be in the World Series, and I keep saying that World Cup. Sorry, soccer World Cup. And I tell him, I'm like, okay, so what do you need to do to get it?
Right.
Well, I need to practice more. I need to show up. I need to get better at this. And I'm like, great. So what are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm just going to keep practicing. Okay, great. So let me tell you how these people make it. They live it. They breathe it. They eat it. Like everything that all these professional players, I promise you, didn't just wake up one day when they were 20 years old, say, you know what? I'm going to go out for the NBA and make it. I promise you that there was a period in their life that they lived it, ate it, breathed it, everything to create that. They practice. That to me is the true definition of trying. They're going to try to get there because that's what's going to get them there.
Well, and they're passionate and they're committed to it.
Yes.
And
It's
so
back to what you said, commitment, right?
it is. It really is. It's motive and intention.
Right.
Now, if you're like, oh, I want to do it because I want to be famous. I'm like, oh, well, there's a lot of other ways to be famous. You can be an influencer. You can do all kinds of stuff. You don't need to kill yourself. You could be the biggest jackass on social media and get a lot of attention. So when we start asking the question of why, and you start to hear things like, because I love it, it's like, awesome. That's beautiful. Oftentimes we love things that we're good at. And it's like, how did you know you love something? Because we've heard this from so many people. Do what you love. Well, until you try many things, you won't know.
And are you doing it because you love it because you want the acceptance of your parents? Are you doing it and because you're saying you love it so you can convince yourself you love it because you need to do it for your friends? For like, are you doing it for you? Does it light you up inside?
Right.
And
this goes back to the whole emotional measurement thing that we talked about, which is, again, I'm so befuddled by the fact that it's so underrated in so many different ways. And yet that's the one thing that 99.9% of the people on the planet are searching for is happiness. Some modicum of it. And they go, oh, when I have more money, I'll be happy. No, you won't. You can have all the money in the world. We'll give you more capacity to have different adventures and things. Yeah. But if you were miserable for money, many people are miserable after the money.
Yeah.
So it just gives you more expensive things to be miserable with.
Absolutely.
It's a fun topic.
It is. And I think it rings true for everyone. That's what I love about Live Now. Like this is about living now. Stop putting the excuses on things and put the action towards it. If you really want to make progress in your life, you have to take the action. And knowledge is very powerful, but it's not powerful enough to get you what you want unless you use it.
Yes.
And do something with it.
100%.
And create something with it.
Well, skill unutilized is energy unharnessed.
I was going to say wasted.
Yeah, it is. I mean, but the sun's the sun, but it's going to shine. It's a thermonuclear reaction. And yet if you're not in it, then you are solar powered. True story. They've done studies about this. You get vitamin D. If you go walking in the sunshine, it refuels your body. And so to your point, Veenu, at the end of the day, let's loosen up our language.
Yes. Yes. It has been great. Again, I can't believe we're already out of time. Thank you, Chuck, for being here and your amazing wisdom to share with the world once again.
Right back at you, my friend. I love and appreciate you. Thank you so much for everything.
You too. Y'all have a great week, and we'll see you next week on Live Now with Veenu and Chuck.
Happy June.
Us on this episode of Live Now with Veenu, Keller, and Chuck Hogan. Follow us on Instagram at Veenu Inspires and at Chuck Hogan Now. For more about Veenu, please visit VeenuInspires.com. And for Chuck, please check out YBLNow.com. This show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out SpanglishWorld.ca for all your news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.